Welcome to the Call to Farms podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Ing, and today we have a very special guest who has been at the forefront of the traditional foods movement for decades. She is the one who I am proud to call my mentor. I'm honored to have written a cookbook inspired by her work, The Nourishing Traditions, that has sold over 600,000 copies and has challenged conventional nutritional wisdom, bringing the importance of traditional nutrient dense foods back into the spotlight over 20 years ago. She is the founding president of the Weston A Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to restoring nutrient dense foods to our diets through education, research, and activism. Our guest has been a local advocate for raw milk, pastured animal products, and the vital importance of saturated fats in our diets. She is not just a writer, an educator, but also a hands on farmer herself, running P.A. Bowen Farmstead in Southern Maryland, where she puts her nutritional principles into practice. Her work spans from challenging industrial food production to empowering individuals to make informed choices about their diet. She's authored numerous books, including the Nourishing Traditions, Book of Baby and Child Care, and Eat Fat, Lose Fat, continuing to bridge the gap between ancient nutritional wisdom and modern dietary needs. Today, I'm so honored to have with us a true pioneer in the world of traditional nutrition, a passionate educator, and a dedicated farmer. Please join me in welcome Sally Fallon Morell to the Call to Farms pod. Wonderful. I am so excited to have you here, Sally
Oh,
Fallon.
thank you, thank you.
Sally, I have been inspired by your work for over 12 years now, and I found your work when my daughter was just 6 months old, and I started looking into the food, the quality of food that we wanted to feed her with. And I was just starting with simple applesauce and looking into why I should be using and sourcing clean organic apples and looking at pesticides and herbicides. And it's just through your work that over the last 12 years, we have changed the way we have eaten all of our Asian food at home with mom and dad living here. They love the traditional foods and love the umami flavors. And ultimately, 12 years later led me to write The Nourishing Asian Kitchen, and I cannot thank you enough for all of your work and your inspiration over the last decade. So thank you so much for being on the Call to Farms podcast.
Thank you.
I love to always ask, what was the pivotal moment in your life that made you, and you've changed the world. So what was that moment for you in your family that made you decide you were going to look into food and or farming?
Well, I have to say, I I grew up in a family of foodies. I think my parents were the original foodies, and they traveled a lot. My mother was a wonderful cook, and she'd come home and cook the foods that they'd eaten. And it was mostly French and European food. So I learned to cook this way, and this is how we ate: lots of butter, cream, all these wonderful things, lots of eggs and bacon for breakfast. So that's the way I cooked. And I started to have my first child was born in 1973, and she was beautiful and healthy. And this is when this low fat message started to creep in. And I just knew this was wrong. First of all, it was tasted terrible, and no one was going to tell me how to eat anyway. So it was, kind of my own obstreperousness, but I just knew it was wrong. So the year after she was born, I discovered Dr. Price's work, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. I read his book, and I thought, see, I was right. So I don't have to change the diet. Eggs are great, butter's great. But so I had three more children. Each one had a rounder and wider face than the last. I got better and better at it. And then when the youngest was 5 years old, going to kindergarten, and I had more time. And I guess my aha moment was I got this idea to write a book, to put Dr. Price's principles in a practical form for Americans. And I got the idea and I immediately dismissed it. I said, this is a terrible idea. There's way too many cookbooks in the world, but I couldn't shake it. I just became an obsession. So that I would say that was the aha moment. So I just continued on, and one thing led to another. The book got published. It started to by word of mouth. It grew, and then my co-author and I, Mary Anna, decided to start the foundation. So here we
And
are. I'm totally trapped.
and that is the Weston A. Price Foundation.
Yes, yes. And we also at that time set up a campaign for real milk, set up that website, which Weston Price adopted as a project. So, yeah, here we
Yes,
are.
that is really exciting. So, throughout the years, I'm sure you've seen the changing of American quality of sourcing, whether that's through seed oils, through the way that we're farming today. How has that been for you as also the founder of Weston A. Price?
I think we have a little recording of Dr. Price on our website. And basically, what he's saying is that we brought lots of good things to traditional primitive people, the gifts from the West, but the gifts that they have to give us are much more important for our survival. And if we dismiss them, if we ignore them and their, what he called their accumulated wisdom about food and health, we won't survive as a people on planet Earth. I mean, this is worldwide. The seed oils have taken over the world, they're everywhere. And with the seed oils come the dietitians, who I call them the nuns of the, I hope I don't offend anybody, but the nuns of the, modern era, and they're preaching the gospel of no animal fats. And if you're going to get rid of animal fats, you're not going to have children. It might not happen the first generation, but it will definitely happen the second or third generation. So we are definitely in the 11th hour here. I've often said this. Our children are more and more unhealthy. We have more and more infertility, not just in America, but the whole world. And our only hope is to go back and listen to the wisdom of the primitive people.
Yeah, that was one of the things. I mean, I was born here in America. My
Mhm.
parents were immigrants. They left Vietnam in 1975. My sister was born in Vietnam. She was 2 years old when she came here, but I grew up with this concept of the traditional with my mom, and that's just how we had to eat because it was the most economical way for us to
Mhm.
eat. She still today takes a whole broiler chicken, and she can still make 4 dishes from it, and
Four
that's
meals. You can make
4
four
meals
meals from one chicken,
from
right?
1 whole broiler chicken,
Yeah.
and I think that, she makes pho, which is that chicken broth, but she
Yeah.
also makes a congee, which is a rice porridge with a cabbage salad with it as well. Then she any leftovers, she'll make the offals with it. So it's just really exciting to see that you're right. When we think about even the way that we're seeing the cost of food rising,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. You
that's
can't afford not to. Yeah, my mother was a traditionalist in many ways. She made chicken broth. She was from the South. She made soup, and she always used butter. She thought margarine was disgusting, and she was a little bit snooty. She a little bit aristocratic thinking, and she just said, "I'm not going to use that horrible common stuff." So fortunately, we always had butter. Now, what we didn't have was lard. The pie crust was made with Crisco, but we didn't have that very often, fortunately. And we didn't have the organ meats. We didn't have the liver, and I was the only child in the family that got raw milk because this wasn't available for them.
well, now that we are in this world of modern convenience, and I'm fully guilty of it, or I
Mhm.
was fully guilty of it. When I was working in tech, I made sure that the house that we bought, that we saved up for years to buy, we had a quarter acre, but I made sure that there were 4 Whole Foods to deliver to our house.
Yeah. Well, that's better than nothing. I mean, yeah, you can actually do it if you don't cook. It's harder and it's more expensive.
Yeah.
And just make sure you put butter on everything, all that delivered food and everything. It'll make a huge difference.
Well, I mean, what are your w- how do you suggest we bridge the gap between those? Because now I've swung the other way, right?
Mhm.
Now since 2020, my eyes have been wide open, and clearly here we're farming our own food. But I often wonder, is there a gap between the ancestral food wisdom and the convenience focus, fast-paced nature of modern life? Like, what are some practical steps that you would suggest people can take?
Well, I would start with the raw milk. You don't have to prepare raw milk. You don't have to do anything. And in many areas, it can be delivered to you. I know my daughter in California just comes to the back door, like old-fashioned milk. It makes such a difference. Raw milk is a truly healing food, very important for growing children. And commercial milk, especially today, now that it's all ultra pasteurized, which totally destroys the proteins in the milk and all the nutrients
Mm.
and makes people sick. It makes your kids have tummy ache. And then, we have 20 to 30 deaths per year from anaphylactic shock from pasteurized milk. So it's very dangerous milk. So that's where I'd start with the raw milk. And then I think the next thing I'd concentrate on is breakfast. Get your kids off to a good start with a good breakfast. That could be oatmeal, and it takes 2 minutes to put it into soak the night before, and then you can heat up that oatmeal day after day, make a big pot. So that's easy. And then, of course, there's bacon and eggs, and that's a little bit more time consuming. But you really want to make sure your kids start their day with a good breakfast in their tummy. I'll say this, I have two children with children, so I've actually four grandsons. They make their kids lunches and they take turns doing it, but they know what absolute junk is fed to these children.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really unfortunate what the our kids are being fed in schools,
Yeah.
and parents are busy. I mean, with the cost of everything too.
Yeah,
It
but it's just the absolute worst stuff.
right.
And then, okay, so dinner now. So maybe you do go out for dinner, but pick a little bit. Not go, don't go out to fast food. Let's put it like this.
Yeah.
What's really lovely is if the mom and dad share the dinner making responsibilities, do it together. It's a lot of fun to have them both in the kitchen. The kids like that. They sit at the counter and do their homework. I mean, can be a wonderful family bonding time. But it shouldn't be all one person in the family, just one person doing it. If one person cooks, the other does the dishes, or if one person cooks the main course, the other person does the salad. You really have to share those duties.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I grew up with my mom as the only person in the kitchen. My dad is, very traditional.
Traditional, yes, yes.
Very traditional. But now I've got my husband and Tim, and I just tell him, like, "Here's the cookbook.
Yeah.
You cook from it." And so we do share the load, and it does bring in a different atmosphere
It
to the
does.
kitchen that
Mm.
I didn't have growing up. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges too that I found as, like, a working mom, working family, both parents working. How do we keep these traditional practices appealing and accessible to our generation and our younger generations has always been top of mind.
Yeah, and the other thing is cook for leftovers. I think it's great to have a real big meal on Sunday, make a couple roast chicken or big roast beef or a leg of lamb, and then you've got meat for leftovers. Stir fries, that's great, or soups. I do a lot of hash, which to me is delicious.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So let's go back to the topic of animal fats
Okay.
because there's so polarizing, and maybe it's through my algorithms that I'm seeing a lot of, like, carnivore. There's a woman online that eats just steak and butter sticks, right?
Well, at least she's eating the butter. My concern about these carnivore and keto diets is that they don't have enough fat in them. They're way too high in protein. And that's not how traditional people ate. They didn't eat lean meat. If the animal was too lean, they threw it away.
Mhm.
They wanted the fat. So that starts with eating the skin on the chicken. What we used to do was cook this beautiful bird and all the fat dropped into the pan. You ate the skin and then you made gravy with the fat. There's really important vitamins in that fat that you don't get elsewhere. I like to say that the purpose of vegetables is as a vehicle for butter. That's what you put your butter on. Whole milk, whole cheese, so you get the butter fat there. We use a lot of lard in cooking. It's a great fat for sauteing things in the pan. And the only oil we use in our house is olive oil and we make our own salad dressing. By the way, that's one real easy thing you can do to make a huge improvement in your family's diet is to make your own salad dressing. I think there's 30 recipes in Nourishing Traditions for salad dressing because the stuff that you buy is the worst. Just look at the labels. First of all, you're starting with the cheapest seed oils, which are hugely toxic. These seed oils break down into aldehydes in your body. Think formaldehyde. That's what's happening in your body when you eat the seed oils. And the undertakers are saying they don't need as much formaldehyde to preserve bodies these days. That's because the bodies are already partially pickled
Oh, no.
because they're eating the seed oils and they break down into aldehydes.
Oh, that is disheartening to hear. And a lot of the Asian cooking, and that's one of the challenges with when I was switching over to eating more nourishing traditions, the diet, was that a lot of the Asian cookbooks and our culture uses a lot of canola
Canola
oil,
oil, yeah.
neutral oil. I don't even know what neutral oil is, but it calls for a lot of it in the recipes. And
Just mean an oil without any taste. In Asian cooking, what they use pig fat and duck fat.
yeah,
And pig fat's a great source of vitamin D, and duck fat is got vitamin K in it, which is so important. They use goose fat also, but that's what they use in their stir fries. I remember reading an article years ago in the Washington Post about how the Chinese government was trying to regulate the outdoor markets. By regulate, they mean get rid of them. They passed laws to make it so hard for these people. And what they showed was somebody in a supermarket pushing their cart, and behind that person was a whole shelf of vegetable oils. So that's what they're pushing people is to shop in the supermarket. That's where the vegetable oils are. Don't shop in the outdoor markets because you might be eating animal fats. You might
mhm,
get lard or something like that.
yeah. That's one of the challenges people ask me too. They say, "Well, when I go to the Asian grocery store, there's aisles and aisles of different sauces and oils." I'm like, "None of them. None of
Yeah,
them are good."
yeah, yeah. And they also, when for immigrants, I don't know if this happened to you, but they especially do this with Spanish speaking immigrants. They send in dietitians who speak Spanish to propagandize them and tell them not to cook in lard and tell them to use vegetable oils.
Yeah, and there's a really great book, The Oiling of America,
The Oiling of America, it's not a book, it's the
but
PowerPoint
PowerPoint,
presentation. But all that information's in my book, Nourishing Fats.
Nourishing Fats. That's right. I do have that one. I have all of your line of of
All
nourishing
the-
broths as well,
yeah.
and I love your children's cookbook.
Oh, thank you.
That works out really well for husbands too, not just
Yes,
children.
I have a lot of moms who use it. So that's the Nourishing Traditions Cookbook for Children.
Yes. Yeah, we love that book. I wish that I had known to start with that one first, then I think I would have adapted it a
Yeah,
lot faster.
yeah.
So wonderful. One of the other things that is predominant with Asian cooking, along with the seed oils and the industrialized oils, is this MSG,
Yeah.
monosodium glutamate. And this is something that right now, from what I'm seeing all over the trends, is bringing back MSG to Asian food.
Oh, well, in the early days, it was made out of seaweed and kombu. I think it was made out of, and I think it might not have been so bad. But what MSG is free glutamic acid. So glutamic acid is an essential protein for us, essential amino acid. But when we eat it in food, it's bound up with other proteins and other substances, so it's released slowly in the body. Because if you take the MSG, it kind of whips up your nerves. I mean, goes right. It's like unprotected, and it goes right to your nerves. And all processed food contains MSG. It's usually not labeled.
Mhm.
In soy foods, it's formed during processing. When they make powdered milk, it's formed during processing. So this is free glutamic acid. And I'm working my way up to a big article on this because one of the things that this does is it affects the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is the master gland, I call it. If you know, the heart is the seat of the soul, the hypothalamus is the seat of the spirit.
Mm.
And the hypothalamus is the gland that produces oxytocin, for example, the cuddle hormone, the hormone that makes us feel affectionate to our children. And there are people who've looked into this who believe that the rise in violence that we're seeing today is because of the MSG in the food. People aren't making the cuddle hormone anymore. The MSG, a lot of people who can't taste very well or smell very well, that's the effect of MSG on the hypothalamus. And, the naysayers say, well, it's a myth, misinformation that MSG makes you gain weight. But actually, there was an excellent study done in China of people who they didn't eat junk food, they didn't eat processed food. They all the people in this study prepared their own food. But some people used added MSG and some didn't. And the ones who added MSG were definitely heavier. They were fatter than the ones who didn't use MSG, eating the same kinds of foods. So it definitely makes you gain weight. When you start children out on processed foods, they're likely to have a weight problem all their lives.
Yeah, this is a problem when before we had started eating clean and
Mhm.
found Nourishing Traditions, my mom didn't cook with MSG, but whenever we went out, I just wasn't as aware of it before.
Mhm.
But right around the time when my daughter turned 6 months old, we started switching out to removing eating out. We had started to make our own sauces from scratch. So all of the Asian sauces, you still start even though we home cooked our food, we were still using the
But
basics
yeah.
from the sauces in the grocery stores. So once we started making our own, and now I didn't notice a difference in our daughter because she was just 6 months old, but I started to notice a difference in my mom. And she used to have heart palpitations constantly whenever we went out to eat. And she would say, "Oh, my head is hurting," because her heart was racing. And once we started switching out, those went away. Those symptoms went away.
Interesting. It's very interesting.
It's very interesting, and that's why it made me think, okay, there is something to be said, even though, now we're hearing things like, well, you could have an allergic reaction to MSG, and
Mhm.
that's what's causing,
Yeah,
your
well, it's a
palpitation.
reaction. That's what it is. Yeah.
Right,
Just
exactly.
because you put the adjective allergic on it doesn't make it any better. Yeah.
Exactly, and to me, I go back to, well, if this is not an ingredient that we can create on our own, that we can put together, that we can find naturally, traditionally, then why are we including it into our traditional meals to make it taste better? It's a flavor enhancer. I think a lot of Asians use it as a flavor enhancer so that we don't have to prepare or cook properly
Well, and
to
it,
bring out
it,
the natural
it
flavors.
imitates the flavor of broth, which of course is a little time consuming to make. And it makes food that otherwise would taste like cardboard, which you would not be able to eat. It makes it palatable.
Right.
So it's tricking your senses all the time. And if you're eating, you know, fast food, processed food, it's just in everything. They put it in the hamburger, they put it in the French fries, and it certainly is in all the Asian sauces, which I can't eat. I wake up in the middle of the night with a very dry mouth, and
Mhm.
as you say, your heart's beating fast, and
Yeah, I would have the dry mouth. That was my symptom. I would
yeah,
get super thirsty. And so we rarely eat out, and it's kind of conducive to our lifestyle now, being on the farm in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot of Asian restaurants.
And the Asian restaurants that are out in the country are the worst. Everything they get, nothing is being prepared from scratch. They get kits. Yeah. So
Exactly.
when they make that kung pao chicken, it's just this powder that they're putting in the pan with vegetable oils and
Right.
some water, and and it's just all additives.
It's all additives, and you think about it, they have to survive and make profit, and so it's not profitable to cook traditionally, and
Yeah.
so they have these pre-made powders, you're right,
Mhm.
for pho, for example, for all
Yeah.
different tom yum soup, which is a hot and spicy soup that you just mix water in. It's no
Yeah.
different than eating, like, ramen noodles out of a bag.
Yes, that's right. That's
Oh,
right.
it's just horrible,
Yeah.
and but I'm really hoping that through, the Nourishing Asian Kitchen, I am bringing awareness to your work and Weston A. Price and the conversations that maybe people hadn't found yet, but it's another branch of the audience who are really curious about how to source, and I talk about that sourcing a lot. And as being a Weston A. Price chapter leader as well here in Eastern Tennessee, I get questions on how do I source, the clean meats that doesn't have any antibiotics, not eating pesticides, not eating corn or soy. But other than those questions, do you have any guidance as to what people should be asking their small farmers? And as a small farmer myself, I'm curious to see if there's any other ways that I can improve.
Well, we have something called the 50% campaign where we urge everyone to spend 50% of their food dollar directly purchasing from local grass-based farms. So our local chapter leaders that's their job, is to keep a list of these farms. So that's where you start. You call your local chapter leader. The website realmilk.com also will help you find raw milk. I was surprised the other day. I looked up Maryland, and there were 46 sources of raw milk in Maryland.
Yay.
And it's illegal for human consumption in Maryland.
A lot of pets need them.
Yeah, a lot of pet milk. Yeah. And yes, we have a lot of dogs and cats in Maryland. So, I would say one really positive thing is, 20 years ago, you couldn't find these things anywhere. And this big resurgence of grass-based agriculture, it's wonderful. Actually, I think we've made more progress with the milk than with the meat, because if you're raising beef or lamb or pork, the problem is getting it butchered. It has to be butchered a USDA approved, inspected butcher. I mean, are you finding this a problem? Do you have a butcher for your meat?
We butcher our sheep and our goats and our chickens,
Mhm.
but for our beef, we actually have a friend who elects not to be USDA without the funding. So she does a really good job. They're also by way of California, another California refugee friend of ours, and she's given me a lot of insight on how that side of the business works.
Mm. And you can sell the pieces?
So I don't, because
Uh-huh.
it's our cow that we're
Mhm.
getting
Oh, for yourselves.
for
Yes.
ourselves, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, no, we don't sell our beef or our meat. We do have a micro dairy that we
Yeah.
sell for other people's pets.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Right. Yes, I think this is the next big push, is getting more small abattoirs all over the country like we used to have. Every town had a butcher, and you could take your animal in and get it butchered and sell the pieces. But you can't do that anymore. So I like to say, if you are, second generation crunchy wealth and you want to help the world, build an abattoir, and we can maybe get a lot of these done this way. Yeah. But so, start there. Start with your dairy foods, your animal foods, your eggs. I mean, that's a huge step right there. buy organic in the markets. It's not, the standards aren't ideal, but it's something, something.
When we think about the food that we're buying, even at Whole Foods, there are things that are being allowed to be labeled as organic, like,
Mhm.
a peel, for example, is
Mhm.
a
Mm,
pesticide. What
yeah.
are your thoughts on that? Are there ways for us to, if we are buying it, it's not labeled, is there any way that we can combat against it or protect our bodies against that?
Well, I think a lot of markets have decided not to take foods that have that coating. It's called a peel, and it's a
Yeah.
coating. You know, there is more organic food at our local Food Lion than there is at Whole Foods. Yeah. So the small groceries do have it a lot more than they used to. You can buy kombucha at Food Lion. So, and this is we're way out in the boondocks in the country. So things are improving. We can buy grass-fed butter at our local Food Lion and pastured eggs. So, things are a lot better than they were, and I think we need to, accept that and be grateful
Mhm.
for it.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. What about the concept of, like, coconut oil? You and I,
Oh,
before
yeah.
we hit record, I'd love to have that conversation about what you were seeing in the changes as you're.
Yeah, so my colleague and my co-author, Mary Enig, was an expert on coconut oil. And we started working together just when the attacks against coconut oil were at their greatest, that it would give you heart disease and it was, saturated fat. And of course, the people who eat coconut oil in their native diets, they have very low rates of heart disease. But what they were going after at that time, and this is the late 1990s, was coconut oil in the popcorn. That was their last target. They'd gotten it out of the food and they've gotten out of the grocery stores, but they had to get the coconut oil out of the popcorn, which they did. They were successful, and now your popcorn is soybean oil or something like that.
Mm,
But then Mary started talking about the health benefits. We had other people writing about the health benefits, and coconut oil has come back to a certain extent. So that's good.
yeah, I
Mhm.
think so. I think I'm starting to see through our bulk buys that people are starting to buy more of the coconut oil, the unrefined coconut oil,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's coming around.
yeah. Good.
When we're talking about, like, nutrient dense, traditionally raised foods, with the cost of food and inflation rising, do you have any tips for families or individuals who are wanting to eat more nutrient dense, but, who don't have a farm, who are raising it themselves?
Yeah.
What are some tips that you could give?
You're gonna have to spend more on food to eat healthy food, but it's not a lot more. I mean, raw milk is more expensive than supermarket milk. Butter is more expensive than a spread. But some ways you can really save money. Oatmeal is a fraction of the cost of packaged cereals. They're very expensive. And if you make your own salad dressing, you can use the finest ingredients and get dressing that costs the same. And like your mother, get 4 meals out of that chicken. It's not hard. And cook for leftovers. I mean, that you'll definitely spend more on food, but hopefully you'll be spending less on medications and asthma medication or whatever it might be.
Mm,
Antidepressants. I mean, the modern diet is the recipe for depression. Your brain is starving on the diets based on seed oils or a low fat diet.
yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things that you and Joel, who are both my mentors in ways that you may not realize, you both have been so influential in the farm to table movement. And
Joel has been wonderful in teaching young people how to farm and putting his heart and enthusiasm in it. It's just been wonderful to see. And this number of small farms is actually growing. I mean, not by a lot, but and that's great because it's food security. We have people who know how to do this now, and when things fall apart, as some people are predicting, we at least will have people who know how to farm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Joel talks about this homestead tsunami that's
Yeah,
overtaken the country since
yeah,
2020, and I told him, I think we were part of the first wave.
And that's all wonderful, but I have to really bring people back down to earth. What we want to make sure we're doing is making these foods available to the
Yeah,
single mom in Brooklyn,
yeah,
living in an apartment in Brooklyn. Very few people can afford to be homesteaders.
mhm.
Very
Yeah,
few.
to absolutely, and it's
So we need to make these foods available to everybody.
yes. Yeah, and we see that too on the real estate side. It is becoming more and more difficult for not just farmers, but even families to enter into homesteading.
Yeah. Having a garden, is a luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, how do you see this movement evolving to potentially bridge the gap between the traditional farming wisdom and the modern consumer needs to the single mom who's living in that,
In the apartment in
the
Brooklyn.
apartment in Brooklyn?
Well, I think over time this is going to happen. I think people will only choose to live near a good food source. So we'll have a lot more integration of the farms and the houses, a lot more bringing the foods into the city and farmers markets and so forth. So
Yeah,
I think this will happen.
yeah. I hope so, and you are doing such great work with your organization at Weston A. Price and your conference,
Yes,
Wise
let's talk about the
Traditions.
conference. Yes, Wise Traditions, October 25th through 27th. Sophie's going to be a speaker there. We're really looking forward to having her. 3 days of 3 or 4 tracks of speakers each day. We range from simple, practical stuff like making chicken broth to much more detailed and scientific information. I'm very excited about Pam Schoenfeld speaking this year about the need for vitamin A for healthy pregnancy and healthy babies. Anything that you need to be healthy that they tell you is bad for you, and that's including vitamin A. So, yeah, it's really a wonderful conference, and the fee includes 5 delicious, nourishing traditions meals.
Yeah, I speak at and attend quite a few conferences throughout the year. This year, I'll be at 16
Oh, wow,
conferences,
good for
but
you.
I will have to say, and I genuinely mean this, the Wise Traditions Conference, which, uh, I feel like it is one of my favorite conferences because it doesn't just talk about the importance of food, but farming, but other topics around EMFs and our holistic health, and especially the politics around food and farming that everyone tends to wanna brush under the rug, at least in our culture. Nobody wants to talk about it in the Asian culture. They think it'll just kinda go away, or if you're a believer or Christian, you can just pray through it,
Pray them away. Yes, yes. But
and
our solution, of course, is to eat them away. Just don't buy their food. And when enough people do this, they'll be gone.
absolutely. It's the concept of vote with your dollar. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
right?
with your food
Yeah.
dollars. Yeah.
And I love that challenge, that 50% challenge that you have out there for folks who are, buying their food in the grocery store. If you can spend 50% of your food budget and support your local farmer. I mean, our local farmers here, small farmers everywhere around the country, they're really feeling the squeeze. I mean, the
Yeah.
cost of any inputs that they have to put into their farm is rising. A lot of these farmers are.
Grain, insurance. I can tell you, insurance is a huge cost for these farmers.
And we feel it too with the cost of, like, alfalfa,
Yep.
and feeding our cattle with alfalfa. During milking anyway, that has gone up, and cost of minerals.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been so dry this year that we've had to give ours alfalfa too,
Yes.
and it's 2 bags a day, 2 bags of alfalfa a day. That's expensive.
It is expensive, and, we often have a lot of people who say, y and we do wanna make our food accessible. Where we are, we're in a food desert in East
Mhm.
Tennessee, so we do want to make it accessible. We could charge more for our milk, especially coming from California, but we
Yeah,
don't because we wanna keep it accessible to all of the locals here.
right.
And I guess one of the questions I wanna ask is, you also have your own farm,
Yes.
PA is it Bowen Farmstead?
PA Bowen Farmstead, yes.
and I've been there twice, and I've enjoyed it. So
Thank
the
you.
tour with your dairy farm and then all the
Mhm.
products that you have and the cheese. And so
Yeah.
this has given you obviously hands-on experience in our food production. And so how has this practical experience influence your understanding of our traditional food system?
I'll tell you what it's changed me. I used to be very encouraging for people to go into farming, but now I've found out how expensive it is.
Mhm.
I mean, it's very hard to break even, very hard. So that's one of the things I really admire about Joel. He has actually made money at it. And if you can't make money at it, who's going to do it unless they make it a hobby farm?
Yeah,
So, and Joel has done it without the dairy component, which is
right.
amazing. I mean, the food that we make the most money on is our cream.
Mhm.
And even here in kind of a food desert, people will pay $15 a pint for cream.
Mm.
It's because you just can't get it anywhere.
E exactly, especially real raw
Cream for
cream.
dogs and cats, of course. But
For dogs, of course, yeah.
Mhm.
But you also sell cheese, right?
Yeah, we make cheese. We make raw cheese. That is actually illegal for human beings. So about 8 months of the year we make cheese, and we also butcher chickens 8 months of the year.
Mm,
We do eggs, and then people love our pork. Our pork is fed whey from the cheese making, so it tastes really good.
yeah, yes. And I do wanna talk about your work and how it often challenges mainstream nutritional dogma. That's one of the things that, you know, that I really admire about you and Joel so much because you challenge the mainstream, and it has either upset a lot of people or it's wakened people up.
Yeah.
For me, it's
That to me,
the
that's
latter.
the fun part of the job. If I haven't made some people angry, I, it's been a boring day, right? And I like to see people get angry because that's the soul rising up to say, listen, the people who don't care, and I mean, I have friends and family member who just don't care.
Mhm.
They don't get upset. They don't get angry. Nothing.
Yeah.
If somebody gets angry, I know I've made some progress. The biggest challenge is coming from the vegetarian and plant-based movement, and I don't think people realize what's behind this. There's so much more profit in plant foods than animal foods. And that's where this is coming from. And organizations get infiltrated and taken over by the vegetarian people. This has happened to all our farming groups. The
Mm.
Maryland Farming Association, it was the Maryland Organic Farming Association. It's all vegetarian now. And where they used to invite me to speak, they don't anymore.
Can you talk more about that? Because I thought that there's more profit in meat.
Oh no, oh no, there's more profit in grains.
Okay.
My son is a chef. One of my boys is a chef. And he said, Mom, if you order a steak in a restaurant, half of their net, or excuse me, half of their gross receipts goes to pay for the steak. So that it's only 50% above that. If you order a plant-based meal, about 25% goes into the cost of the meal. And if you order a muffin, 10% goes into the cost of the meal.
Wow.
So they would much rather you had a muffin or a plant-based meal than a steak. And the only reason they serve the steak is because people get mad if you don't. So keep getting mad.
Wow. I hadn't realized that.
Yeah,
It's
so
yeah.
it's much harder to control, to store.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then we talk about microgreens too and how profitable that is in the
yeah.
plant
Yeah.
world. But, well, curious to know your thoughts on, let's say, lab-grown plant foods. I have a
I don't. It's not going anywhere. Believe me,
okay.
they're they're smoking dope if they think they're going to make money with this. These laboratories where they make it's the lab grown meat, right?
Mhm.
They're huge, very energy intensive, energy hogs, and there's these huge vats with
I've
stainless
seen,
steel
yeah.
fat bubbling away. And the other secret that people don't realize is to make this garbage, they have to use something called bovine fetal serum. which is the blood that's drained out of the fetuses that are pulled out of the mothers.
Mm,
And they're alive while this happens. It takes about 15 minutes for them to die while the blood is drained from them. And this gruesome process is what they need to make the lab meat.
mm.
So it's not kind, it's not green, it's none of these things.
And is that still considered plant-based lab-grown meat then?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, wow.
But they're not telling anybody these gruesome facts. So
Wow.
I'm not concerned about lab meat. They are
Yeah.
already losing money, and eventually the crunchy millionaires are going to get tired of this
Yeah. One
and
of
build abattoirs instead. That's what we what we need is abattoirs.
That's right. Well, one of your speakers at the Wise Traditions Conference is Congressman Thomas Massey,
Yes, he's giving our keynote speak.
and
He's
I
a
had
great friend of farmers.
yes, we admire his work as well, and I know he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, we can do as consumers and farmers ourselves is to continue to talk about how our small farmers how they're farming it right and the nutritional aspects of the food that we're buying from them. But what are your thoughts on effectively communicating the value of traditional foods to policymakers or healthcare professionals who may be skeptical of non-mainstream nutritional approaches?
Well, we just keep at it. We have, I don't want to say lobbyists, but we have
Mm,
people who watch the legislation and we send out action alerts so that people can contact their congressman. The big thing that we're working towards in the current agriculture bill is something called the Prime Act, which would allow custom butchers in these states to butcher animals for you that you can sell by the piece as
mhm.
long as it's in the state. And this would just be tremendous. It would really open things up.
And this is the Prime Act, right?
This is the Prime Act.
Yes.
Someone was telling me the husband of one of our chapter leaders, who's a very wealthy and influential man, he's been doing this for us. He's been buttonholing these congressmen, and he got two sponsors for the bills for us. So I love stories like this.
That's
So he's
wonderful.
gotten involved. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, that's great. I think, you know, the efforts that we're seeing now, I really do hope that they are will be paying off and that we'll get
They
more.
will. I mean, as I say, things are better. I can go, as I say, I can go to the Food Lion and buy pastured eggs, grass-fed butter, and pastured meat. It's all
Yeah.
there. It wouldn't have been there 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's great. And as we continue to make advances and pushing back and making these foods more legal and available for us, that'll be great for future
And it's
generations.
consumer demand. It's consumer demand.
Yes, right. In your book, the Nourishing Traditions book of baby and child care, you apply traditional wisdom to raising healthy children. And one of the questions I want to ask is how do you see these principles translating across different cultures, especially as families become more multicultural?
Well, it's the same everywhere. Every race in the world has a perfect blueprint, and that blueprint requires a certain level of nutrition for that person to grow, be healthy, and have children.
Yeah.
That's true in every culture, and the principles are the same. The foods may be different, but the principles are the same. And I see this catching on everywhere. We have a lot of traffic on our website from foreign countries. We have a lot of translations on the website. We just did our main brochure in Hebrew, for example.
Mm,
Yeah, so there's a lot of interest, and we have chapter leaders all over the world as
right.
well.
Right. I was at the chapter leader meeting last year and I remember it was so international. And one of the exciting things is I actually got invited to speak at Ferment Oaxaca too with one of the
Oh, is
chapter
that
leaders
right? Yeah, in Mexico. Yeah,
in
yeah.
Mexico. Yeah, to share about how to make kimchi.
Good, good for you. Yeah, yeah.
So I love the ability for us to share the different cultures in this day and age with using the modern technology that we do have to take the good from each of the cultures that we have
Yes.
access to and
And
share.
so many things are common. I mean, all cultures have fermented food. There's no exceptions to this. They all have fermented food. Most cultures make broth. Very few exceptions to this. Even the Eskimos make broth, you know. They made broth in the South Seas in big shells, you know, that they all made broth.
Yeah.
All cultures use salt. They
Mhm.
couldn't survive without salt, and they went to a lot of effort to get the salt. In the South Seas, the people who lived on the interior, they grew the sweet potatoes and things like that. They were much poorer than the people who lived on the coasts. And what did they trade their sweet potatoes for? Salt water from the ocean.
Oh,
And
wow.
they've used that in their cooking. So yeah, and then all these cultures had a big emphasis on the organ meats,
Mhm.
the blood and the fats of the animals. Those are the most nutrient dense part of the animals, and especially prize these foods for having healthy babies. So the
Yeah.
principles are the same. We have a lovely new little booklet called 11 Principles of Wise Traditions Diet. It's very beautifully done. So yeah, you can
I
get
love that. And you also have 12spoons.com.
Yes, that's a restaurant rating website, and you can find restaurants that cook in lard and do things the way we recommend.
Yeah, I love that website when we're traveling. Now, we don't have any 12 Spoons really compliant restaurants here near us,
Yeah,
but
no, we don't either.
no, actually, you do have a really great restaurant near you in Maryland anyway. It's Dr. Bill Schindler's Modern
Yes,
Soul
on the
Kitchen.
Eastern Shore, yeah.
Yes,
That's
on the Eastern
pretty
Shore,
far
yes.
from us. You know, they say Maryland's a small state, but we're very spread out because we're shaped like an angle. So, yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to have had this time with you, Sally. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
your
having
time.
me.
And for anybody who's interested in learning more about your work, where can they find you?
Okay, so our main website is westonaprice.org, westonaprice.org. And everything we've ever written or published is on that website. So it's a huge website. Our conference website is wisetraditions.org. And then for finding the raw milk, it's realmilk.com. My own website is nourishingtraditions.com. And every now and then in my spare time, I write a blog. I'm just about to publish another one. So it's not very often, but maybe once a month, something like that.
Well, I'm excited to hear about your MSG blog that you'll be writing or article.
Oh, that's up there. If you go to nourishingtraditions.com and just put in MSG, you'll find the one that I did on that.
Wonderful. Yes, I think I did read that one. I thought you were writing another one that's
Mm.
updated. Well, thank you
Yeah.
again so much,
Thank
Sally,
you, Sophie.
for your work and inspiration to all of us
Mhm.
around the country and around the world.
I look forward to seeing you
I look
very
forward to seeing
soon.
you too. Yes.
Okay.